Well, children are curious. They're very, very curious. So what makes children exciting is to come to an environment that they can explore and they can really have many things to do that they can figure it out. So the environment really is very important for children to develop that curiosity. If you're in an environment that doesn't have many options for children or different things for them to experience, children tend to kind of not really get engaged in anything. So if you go to a great environment where children have different materials, because at this age materials are very important, then the children will just naturally explore because they're curious by nature. So that's the favorite thing, I think, for children to have different environments that have a lot of complexity, and they're all really designed for them to kind of be explorers. And when they explore and they kind of get to manipulate materials and be in an environment that has complexity and exciting for them, it's how they make the connections about things. And that's how they learn. Oh, okay, this makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Because they are doing things. Also, like the complexity part and be divergent is very important, because the more the children can use one thing and have different meanings. And that's very linked to creativity. So children, become more creative because they can build, let's say, with blocks, and then we put a mirror behind that block so they can build in here and get to see the mirror over there. So they had two different structures. We play a lot with light and shadow. So with the same, if the children are kind of building here, they get to build also on screen with shadow play, or different things like that. Just kind of give more depth and complexity for the children in the children environment in context with the material, so the children can really develop the full potential, and they do. 2 years old really can explore all kinds of materials, and if they're presented right, we have to present the materials for them to manipulate and to explore, then the children will, because not only 2 to 5, but starting with 2, we introduce materials, and children really, it's not like you just bring something and just let them touch it. You just say, let's say if you have a material, let's say a Sharpie, you tell them the Sharpie stains, and they understand that, so they're not going to go on their hands, and they don't. They are 2 years old, 3 year old, so they learn how to use materials. Like any artist, you need to know how to use first your material. So the children will do introduction to all these different materials they use, and then once we do the introduction, then they get to work with this material. So it's a little bit of Montessori as well, how to use the material, but it has more, the way we do it has more possibilities. Each material has a lot of possibilities for children. One thing that I always talk about is about the image of children. And I think once you change your image of children, you change anything around children. So the image of children that we have is an image of a child that is very powerful. Children are very powerful. 2 year old, 3 year old, a baby, they all come with knowledge to this world. So if you have that idea, you think really like children can understand when you explain them, and children can really create. So and they're really processing, how things work by trying them, but they're full of knowledge. So if you come from that perspective, I think everything changes. When you're farming, if you have the right soil and and the right weather and everything around it is right, that sprouts. And I think that's what happened with children. When you have the right environment, the right the teachers are learning with them. They're all researching together. We have the families are a big part as well. Of course, with us and the environment and all together, and the community. If we all work together in the same way, the children really organically sprout. Children need to be connected to the community as well, because for the future, if you don't have that connection, you cannot have future leaders in this world. So if you start early on with the families and the community connection, you can see that eventually children are going to have interest in it and be invested in their community, and they're going to grow up like that. So that's what we want, children who can collaborate, who are invested, who are researchers, who are curious, and they really want to learn. So I think all these pieces together is what it makes. The joy, that's big too. It has to be joyful. The joy and then discovery and how that works. Joy is important, because if you are connected what you're doing and it's joyful, you're going to love learning. It's going to be in you. You just want to learn more. So I think everything has to be done with joy. And that's what I think is so important to kind of set up beautiful environments that not only teachers are comfortable, children are comfortable, parents are comfortable. If you set up an environment that's great, everybody is happy to be here, and it shows. And then the transitions are smooth, and everybody's really happy. So I think that's very important. Nothing without joy. Everything has to be joyful. If you see a child that's not interested in something that you're presenting, then it's not interesting. So you need to move. You need to let go and move forward to the next thing because it's not. Then it doesn't become something that's connected to them. So we have a constructivist approach at the school of education, which the children, like I said before, they're full of potential and knowledge, and what they do is they construct their knowledge. So our job is to be here to make sure they make those connections, but they construct their own knowledge, and they co-construct with their friends, with their family, with the teachers, and with the community. So I think all those are the pieces that make the new progressive way of learning. So like I said, children and teachers go together in this journey. It's not this and this, it's like this. Well, one of the things we talk about is about joy. What joy and wonder. I think when children are wondering and they're excited and they get joyful, right? So when we're thinking about a teacher that's with a child, right in that process where he's in this, magical moment, because there are a lot of magical moments every day. Every day you're going to find a magical moment. And the teachers, like I said before, have to be present, and we have to be in the same position as the child. We need to wonder with the children in any kind of context. We're supposed to be wondering with them instead of giving an answer or kind of saying, well, things are not really like that, things are this way. That already kind of kills the child curiosity. So the whole learning process is important if you can keep that curiosity and that joy and that what's going to happen tomorrow if we keep doing this. So if you don't have a teacher that's right there in that moment, listening to the heart with the child and working with them and having the right questions, right? Because we need to scaffold the children's ideas, then it's not really learning, because children don't have connection to it. It's not something that is contextual to them. So I think that's very important in the digital world or in the the physical world and in schools, even at home. I think if you're talking to your child about something that has no context and they have no connection to it, it's not going to really be important for them. I find how can we have this learning in the digital world? I think people who is working in this kind of context have to really have a high image of child. Like he's really, a child that's intelligent, that's full of knowledge. So they need to I think that will already change the way they present things. The other thing that I think is very important is not only to have a context that the children are interested in, is some kind of interaction, to be interactive, that the children want to come back and they really challenge their thinking process, and they really have experiences that they can actually have different meanings, so they can make different connections. I think that the divergent way of presenting things in the digital world as well as in our world, I think it's important for children to make different connections. Okay, well, let me to okay. So what I believe that in the digital world, as much as in our daily work at school, what's very important is to create context where children can learn from other children, because they have a connection. When it comes from other children, is very important because they feel connected to it. So I think that's a very big piece, to have that connection with what they're watching. So if it comes from a child for another children, the children definitely get more interesting because it's a co-constructive way of learning from other children. So I think that in the digital world is possible to be done. So let's say when they're in the preschool age, they're more about kind of learning by touching things, by being in contact with things, because they don't have that symbolic yet developed. So it's so important to have materials, we call it, like manipulating clay, right? And drawing, and using different types of things to figure out ideas. So that's how they figure out what they do, by using different materials. So tactile is very important because it's what you present to the children, and they're able to touch it and kind of create different concepts and make connections, and that's how they learn.